Okay, folks, if I could get quiet in the chamber, it's 7 o'clock. I'm sorry I don't have a great voice, but I'll do the best I can. I will call this meeting to order. If I could please ask everybody to rise. Could we stop the discussion in the back of the room, please? Call the meeting to order. You could rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So this is a joint meeting with the Budget and Finance Committee of the Council and the Finance Committee of the Town of Bridgewater. I welcome my colleagues from the Finance Committee. I also want to recognize that I have other counselors here. I have Adeline Ellenberg, I have Dr. Kevin Perry, I have Paul Murphy, Johnny Loretti, and Sonia Striggles, not in any particular order. Thank you for being here. We do not have meeting minutes to approve, so we should have them at the next meeting. I will ask MJ if you would want to also call your meeting to order.
I will call the meeting of the Bridgewater Finance Committee to order at 7:02 p.m.
Thank you. And you have quorum and we have quorum, so that's great. Before we do public comment, I would just like to ask Blythe if she would help me address the fact that the first legislation referred is going to be withdrawn and the reasons behind that.
Thank you, Mr. Lindy. We are recommending to both committees, boards, that the both of you tonight vote to recommend to the Town Council that the order regarding the TIF agreement be withdrawn. As staff has had a chance to dig into this process, we have come to better understand that we need to go through a formal process that's laid out in state law that would set up a TIF district first, and we would need to introduce a new ordinance to the Town Council at its upcoming, ideally it's next week's meeting, to be able to start that process. It doesn't mean that we couldn't come back and while that's going on and entertain another order or ordinance as Town Council recommends to continue to work with this particular developer on a project, but we feel we need to stop and get right back on the correct track as soon as possible. So we're asking you to recommend withdrawal.
So I would take motion to that effect.
Motion to withdraw.
Okay.
Second.
Second. We'll do a voice, Josh, for our group.
Counselor Lindy?
Yes.
Counselor Chase?
Yes.
Counselor McGrath?
Yes.
Thank you. The motion was approved.
And over to finance.
So the action with the Budget and Finance Committee haven't taken that action since it now is for us. Do I hear any discussion or any motion? Right.
Second.
Motion made by Dr. Bennett, seconded by Mr. Bean. Josh, if you'd be so kind.
Ms. Pagone?
Yes.
Mr. Bennett?
Yes.
Mr. Bean?
Yes.
Ms. Basewicks?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Thank you. The motion was approved.
Thank you. So we will go to item B, order 0FY25. Oh, yeah, sorry. Thank you. Public comment. I am going to try to keep this to 30 minutes on each end so we can, because this is ultimately in all likelihood going to be referred right to the council, all these items. So I'm sure we're going to have public comment on Tuesday next week as well. Is there any objection to that?
Mm-hmm.
No?
That's fine.
Okay. On your committee?
No objection from us, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. So let's go right to public comment, and it's 3 minutes. I don't have the fancy beeping thing that my council colleague, Dr. Perry, has, but I do have a cell phone, and at 3 minutes, if you can do TV cues from me, when you're at 2, I'm going to hold up one finger, and I'll be really careful which one it is. So who's up first?
Mark Peterson, 43 Church Street. I just want to recommend that the minutes be put on the website in at least draft form as soon as possible. Thanks.
Thank you, Mark. Okay, next up.
Good evening. I'd just like to ask you, as a person with a hearing disability, if somehow you could speak more loudly. I could hear from this microphone just fine, but I can't hear what other people are saying up here.
Okay, so
If it's possible.
can you hear that better? Okay, so keep your mic close and make sure the power switch is on. If it's lit red, it's not on.
All right, just to confirm, folks can hear me? Good.
Carlton?
Yeah, Carlton Hunt, 80 Osmond Street. I just want to encourage you to act quickly on the 2 orders that are before you for the Hansen Farm conservation restriction. It's all set. We've been working on it for 3 years. We're almost there. Thanks.
Thank you.
Dr. Michael Thomas, 72 Magnolia Way, Bridgewater. I just had a comment on the expenses that are going to be paid for a new flagpole as to why that's needed at this point in time when we're going for an override budget of, $6 million for the schools and $11 million total for the town. I think it's something that might be looked at and put off for another time, a better time for the town. I'm sure the school could use the $23,000. And I'm sure it would please other residents to show that the town is being strict with what they want to spend on at this point in time and going through the budget with a fine-tooth comb to take out exactly what is needed and what isn't needed. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up.
Ashley Mallard, 270 Grange Park. I'd just like to impress upon the need to move forward with this override, and that I understand there was some requests to look over things with a fine-tooth comb, but I would just like to stress that no matter what, the school has already done that. They've come back with a smaller budget than they had originally proposed. Additionally, I was rewatching, just for fun this weekend, the joint committee meetings that some of the members on this council actually had with Bridgewater Rainham last year as well. So this isn't nothing new, although that may have been said at certain parts, and for certain people it might be newer than others. But the need to move forward is ever pressing. The superintendent will be meeting with a lot of my staff this week. Those numbers are going to be coming out. Those pink slips are going to be coming out. And we need this budget settled before July. So no matter what, please don't leave these kids behind, because we're upset about the additional 4.7 that got added on. I do encourage you to analyze that 4.7 that I think that's roughly the number that was added on beyond the school district's ask, so that we can make this something to support all necessary services in the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, John.
Councillor Adeline Ellenberg. I would like to propose a novel idea. Now, I was just speaking with the town manager who tells us that we're at the 5-yard line, but it's still a novel idea, and I would like to propose it. We don't want to lay off anybody. We don't want pink slips. Don't want that. As an alternative, if the employees from A to Z, I'm talking town manager, IT, school, fire, police, everybody from A to Z, didn't take the step increase or the COLA, that would save a considerable amount of money. I've asked Ms. Garina for the number. I don't have that number yet. I understand the COLA payments are $500,000 at this point, so that would increase our budget somewhat. So again, I don't want anyone to lose their job. I think we would still need an override, even if the employees, in good faith, did such a thing. We would have to, in good faith, support a smaller override. So I just want to put that novel idea out to you folks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Donna Jewell, Keith Place, Bridgewater. I would just like to support Councilor Loretti's recommendation from the last town council meeting, whereby he asks that the boards review a 5-year plan for both the school committee and the town before any financial decisions are made. I'm not suggesting we delay a process, but I think that's a very, very important step in the process instead of looking at a 1-year situation. I think it's incumbent upon all of us to take that responsibility and look at 5 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments?
Sean Kennedy, 487 Summer. I'm just going to echo the same. I think it's just due diligence to have an extended plan in place to let the taxpayers know where the money's going to be spent over the next 5 years. I understand the need and the concern. It seems like we're right up against it, which is unfortunate. I think this could have been avoided to a certain degree, but since we're here, I do think the townspeople do need to know where their money's going to be spent for the next 5 years, so we're not looking at another potential override. If more positions are going to be filled, it sounds like we're also short on some positions for the school with the current setup or the current budget that's put in place that they put out. So what I like to say is, letting the townspeople know where we're going to be at for the next few years is just, I think, the responsible thing to do. So, thank you.
Thank you. Other comments? Going once? Going twice? Okay. We will move on. I don't know if you do public comment at all during FinCom meetings?
I usually invite members of the public to come up and speak if they so wish to do so, and then we usually move on to the remainder of our agenda.
Okay. If anybody wants to speak under the FinCom banner at the moment? Okay, hearing none, we'll go right into legislation referred. Okay, the first one is with, we made a motion and we withdrew the first one? Yeah. Okay, so we'll go to B, which is Order 0 FY 25-050, acceptance of a donation, Bridgewater Firefighters Association, and I'll defer to the town manager.
Firefighters Association wishes to have you accept a donation of $142 so they can purchase, we can purchase an American flag to be flown on the common.
Okay. Any questions from any of my colleagues?
Motion approved.
Motion to approve?
Second?
Second. We'll vote it.
Counselor Lindy,
Yes.
Counselor Chase,
Yes.
Counselor McGrath.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion was approved.
Finance Committee?
All right, for our committee, are there any questions, comments, or concerns? Counselor?
I believe it was 142.40. Yes. Yes.
All right. Any other questions or concerns from the members? All right, hearing none, I would entertain a motion.
Motion to accept. Second.
Motion seconded. Josh, if you'd be so kind?
Ms. Pagone,
Yes.
Mr. Bennett,
Yes.
Mr. Bean,
Yes.
Ms. Basewicks,
Yes.
Mr. Thomas.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion was approved.
Okay, we will go to the next one, which is Order 0 FY 25-051, Transfer Order Flagpole. I'll defer to the town manager.
The town council had previously determined that they wish to have the current flagpole relocated and 2 flagpoles added to it in the front of the Academy building facing Common. And they'd like to have that in place by June 1st so that other flags that are typically flown at that time of year could be raised for that. In order to do so, a fundraising effort has already been underway. But in order to get it done on time, we need to start soon, and we need to have an appropriation so that when the work is done, we can pay the vendor for it. So this proposal is to move $25,000 from the one-time stabilization fund to an account specifically for this. We don't think it'll cost quite $25,000. Our current estimate is about $23,000. And so we would need recommendation from both of these committees to advance it back to the council and vote next week, so the contractor can get going and get that work done on time. And then any fundraising that does occur the money will be given back to the town. You'll accept that later, and that will offset the cost.
Okay, I'd entertain a motion to recommend to the council.
Motion to approve.
Second?
Okay, Josh?
Counselor Lindy,
Yes.
Counselor Chase,
Yes.
Counselor McGrath.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion was approved.
Before we take a vote, I wanted to know if anybody has any comments, questions. Make
Mike.
sure your mic's on.
On? Very good. First of all, I don't have an objection to putting up flagpoles for whatever reason or such. But with the price, is this, the figure that we're talking about, is this an estimate or has this been something that is concrete? Because from the description, it sounded like it was more of an estimate. Is there anything really finite or definite?
Yes, this is definite information. When we first started looking at it, we had an estimate of 20,000, but as we finalized the exact design and the layout of the bricks and pavers around the flagpoles, we determined that 23,000 was required because we not only need to move the current flagpole, we need to purchase 2 more, we need to run electrical service to the new area, fix the hardscape where the current flagpole is, and then create a hardscape around the new area so it looks like it belongs there with the rest of the layout in front of the Academy building.
Okay. And you talked a little bit about a fundraising. Can you tell us, give us a little detail into that?
So several members of the community stepped forward and said they were willing to raise funds to try and offset the costs, and they're doing so by selling commemorative bricks that people can have inscribed with their family member's name or whatever at $100 a piece, and those all that revenue will come back to the town to offset this cost.
I did have just a couple comments on it. Blythe, if you just give a little bit of clarification to the residents who are in attendance and those who might be watching at home. The use of one-time funds from this particular fund, this is normal, correct?
Yes, it is.
All right. And the amount is not as much as we anticipated it was going to be, correct?
It's approximately the same amount, roughly.
All right. And just to give you a better idea, the use of one-time funds, the concept of one-time funds, if you could just give like a quick 30-second summary of what one-time use funds usually are generally for.
I may have to defer to the finance director, but I'll give it a go. And that is that there's things like this that come up during the year that we don't plan for in a budget. We didn't plan to move flagpoles, so it was never covered anywhere. So part of one of our stabilization funds is for things like this that arise during the year and gives the town the ability to address them.
So effectively, if something happens, we can at least make sure that we can appropriate funding amount to address a certain need at that one time, correct?
Correct.
Excellent. Thank you. Any question?
Yeah. I understand everything that goes along with the flagpole and the hardscape stuff, and it's slightly reasonable price-wise. It's not, maybe a whisker high, just based on my knowledge being in the industry. But I don't think now is the time. I think that $23,000 could be used better somewhere else, Park and Rec, other places. So I'm opposed to it.
Are there any other questions, concerns, or comments from the board? All right. Hearing none, I would entertain a motion. Did you have another question?
We're done.
I'm done.
I thought you did a motion. You had a motion in a second.
No,
Okay.
No.
You had a motion.
They have, we haven't.
Correct.
Yep. So
I'll make the motion.
I hear a motion. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
All right. Josh, could you take the roll call, please?
Ms. Pagone?
No.
Mr. Bennett?
No.
Mr. Bean?
No.
Ms. Spacewicks?
No.
Mr. Thomas?
No.
Thank you. The motion failed.
Okay, we will move on to the next item of business, Order 0FY25-052, acceptance of Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs, MVP, grant for the Hansen Farm Conservation Restriction Purchase. That's a mouthful. So I will ask the town manager if she could give us some clarification.
So the prior town manager had applied for a grant from the state's MVP program to allow the town to be able to purchase the development rights for the farm. That was awarded late last summer, and since that time we've been through the process to ink a purchase and sale agreement for that right, as well as negotiate the conservation restriction that has to go with it. So we're asking you to accept the grant so that we can go forward to, once all the paperwork is done, to be able to pay what the town is required to for the restriction.
The grant is in the amount of
$3 million.
Okay, could I get a motion for that?
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Second. Any discussion from our Budget and Finance Committee? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote.
Counselor Lindy,
Yes.
Counselor Chase,
Yes.
Counselor McGrath.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion was approved.
Comes down to us now. Any questions or concerns or comments regarding this request? All right. I did have a couple of questions for the town manager. So this basically helps us pay for the conservation restriction, correct?
Correct.
And this helps us also cover all funding needs for the restriction along with any charges or fees that go along with it, correct?
There's a separate, this MVP grant required a 1% match using CPA funds, so there's a separate order on the agenda tonight to approve for a little over $34,000 for all that work.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any comments or questions? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion approved.
Motion approved by Mr. Bean, second by Mr. Thomas. Josh, could you take a roll call, please?
Ms. Pagone,
Yes.
Mr. Bennett,
Yes.
Mr. Bean,
Yes.
Ms. Basewicks,
Yes.
Mr. Thomas.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion was approved.
Thank you. We will go to the next order of business, which is Order 0 FY25-053, Acceptance of Grant, High Street Dam, Town River Restoration. And I will defer to the town manager.
So the State Division of Ecological Restoration put out a grant opportunity to remove invasive species from various bodies of water throughout the state. We were eligible to apply for one to remove such things from the town river near where the High Street Dam was removed and the bridge replaced. We won a grant for $11,000. There's no match required by the town, and we have an engineering firm all ready to go to do that work, which has to be completed by June 30th.
Thank you.
Motion to recommend?
Any further discussion?
No.
No? Okay. Call for a vote?
Counselor Lindy,
Yes.
Counselor Chase,
Yes.
Counselor McGrath.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion was approved.
Before I open it up to questions or comments, I'd like to point out that from an environmental perspective, this is a really good thing for this part of the town river watershed. It's really important that we get this kind of stuff done so that we can be able to get these funds, and hopefully there'll be more funds along the way from DER. I believe that's a new agency now, isn't it, Blythe? Is that a new agency or a new subdivision of the Fish and
Not
Wildlife?
sure.
I don't recall if it is or not, but
They like to change their names, so.
well, DHCD was, actually got obviously, livable communities and whatnot. But I think it's important that we get these types of grant funds because from an environmental perspective, our town can use all the help it can get. So with that, I will open it to comments and questions. No questions, no comments. All right, hearing none, I would entertain a motion. Motion by Mr. Thomas. Do I hear a second? Seconded for Dr. Bennett. Josh?
Ms. Pagone,
Yes.
Mr. Bennett,
Yes.
Mr. Bean,
Yes.
Ms. Basewicks,
Yes.
Mr. Thomas.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion was approved.
Okay, so the next one is Order 0 FY25-054, a transfer order, conservation easement restriction for Hansen's Farm.
So as I mentioned in the previous order that refers to this, the CPA match is 1% for this project, and the CPC committee has voted to recommend a total of $32,138 to cover such things as providing Wild and Struss will co-hold the restriction with their endowment fee for them to manage that throughout the rest of the time that they would need to do that, an environmental site assessment of the project, the required signs that the CPA would require, and a couple of other small supplies.
Any further questions?
No.
Okay, so,
A motion to move.
Second?
all in favor? Well, go ahead, Josh.
Counselor Lindy,
Yes.
Counselor Chase,
Yes.
Counselor McGrath.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion was approved.
It seems pretty straightforward for our group. If we voted on one, we should probably vote on the other. I would entertain any conversation or comments if anybody has any. Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Motion approved by Mr. Bean. Do I hear a second?
I second.
It's a tie, but we'll give it to Ms. Pasowitz. All right, Josh.
Ms. McGowan?
Yes.
Mr. Bennett?
Yes.
Mr. Bean?
Yes.
Ms. Basewicks?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Thank you, the motion was approved.
Okay, next item is Order 0FY25-055, Proposition 2.5 ballot question. Refer to the town manager.
So this is what we would otherwise call an override to allow the town to tax beyond the 2.5% that's allowed by Prop 2.5 to raise funds beyond that amount for various purposes. In your packet is a detail about what we have put forth, and there are 4 different parts to that. The schools' budget requirements to restore what we've cut from the town budget that is planned for next year, funding for roads to allow us to make some headway in getting our roads in better shape, and lastly, to consider some positions that the town probably should have in its organization to fulfill its various purposes, but for which we have not been able to budget in the past, given limitations in our growth each year. And as I said to the town council last week, the amounts for roads and for the additional positions are certainly something that I would expect these committees and the town council to consider whether those are appropriate now, and whether they think that the voters should vote on those, or they should consider some of them or none. As far as what's been requested by the school, the amount there would enable us to meet our share of the school committee's certified budget for next year, and the amount of about $723,000 that we cut from the town budget would enable us to not have to eliminate a number of positions and make some expense cuts that would be difficult for the following year.
So I will open it up for a motion in a second so we can have discussion.
Motion to recommend.
Second.
Okay? We'll have discussion and then we'll take a vote.
I'd just like to offer comments. Having served on the council for a number of years now, one of the most regrettable annual experiences I've encountered is during the annual combined joint session between the town council and the school committee, when we learn about the school committee's requests for the budget for the coming fiscal year. And year after year after year, I've witnessed the council not appropriately fund our schools. Not by design, that wasn't our intention, but frankly, I think we succumbed to the pressure over years to maintain a conservative fiscal position, which this town has been frankly known for, and that's a good thing. But I think we've done so at the expense of many programs, and certainly we know many staff members and teachers in the school system. And by virtue of year after year after year of having followed that pattern, we look at the figures today. We have armloads of documents that bear this out, that we as a town, on a per capita basis, spend considerably less than most other towns in the Commonwealth with respect to, among other items, support of our schools. And I think we've gotten to the point of no return following that process. I think that we're making up now for a number of lost years where funding was absolutely inadequate. And I think that the proposal for the override that the figure of which might very well and probably will be subject to some change, but nonetheless, the general structure of it that was just briefly outlined by our acting town manager as to funding for schools, funding for roads in fact, on an ongoing basis, because it's not being done as a
a debt exclusion, it's being done as an override. So there would be a process in place for continuing rehabilitation of roads that are needed, and for police, fire, other public safety, and other town services. It's all wrapped up in one package because I think it has to be. I think we have to go big, frankly, and it's a tough swallow. I can appreciate that, particularly so for those of us, including myself, on a fixed income. I think we all have appreciation for that, but I feel that the need has been demonstrated. It is so severe that there is no feasible alternative. Lacking a substantial override for these purposes, we know that there will be in the town substantial across-the-board cuts in services that will leave us with, frankly, cuts in every department. It'll leave us with, hopefully, adequate public safety, but many other non-public safety related roles could be eliminated. And the last time the town voted in favor of an override was 15 years ago. So that was 2010. So spin the Wayback Machine in your minds a minute and think about 2010. In 2007, the Great Recession began. And it really wasn't until 2008 that most of us were aware of the fact that we were in a recession. Because in 2008, we had the bank failures. We had the accounting firms go under, the big 8 accounting firms. We had automakers in Detroit looking for bailouts. That all coming back to you now? Well, the town was equally in financial straits because the town's finances are not that much different from the federal government's or from our own households. We as a town are suffering from, certainly from inflationary pressures, as are we all. We're also suffering because we see, and we've predicted, a loss of revenues from local taxes, for example. So the town is really caught in the middle, and that was the case 15 years ago. And after several failed attempts, in 2010, we did pass an override. So we know we can do it. We know that we do it only as a last resort, and we know that this is the time for it to happen. And those are my comments.
Thank you, Councilor Chase. Councilor McGrath.
Thank you, Chair. I only have a couple of things. I have to agree with my fellow Councilor Murphy that the $2 million for the roads should be at debt exclusion, to take that off the bill. I wouldn't want to cut down any of the services. And as for the school budget of $6 million, I think that's up to the residents. The only thing that I fear, that I've been hearing, and I would like the town manager, maybe you could address this, that if we have an override and it fails, somebody can call a joint meeting where the two towns come together, and the people who are present at that meeting will vote for the budget, and that way the towns have to take that money out of their budget money, not an override. Is that correct?
That's a very good first overview, yes. So whether or not to call a district-wide meeting, which is the technical term, is solely the decision of the school committee. So if the override failed in one or both towns, they have the opportunity to call that meeting. And as you say, it's like a very large town meeting. All the registered voters of both communities are allowed to attend, and their decision at that meeting on that one item carries. And so it doesn't necessarily trigger an override, but what would likely happen is if it did pass at that meeting, and that would become the obligation of both communities. And in our case, if it's $6 million, if that's the number that they put forward, then we would need to find a way to either raise that money or cut our budget significantly to get to that point. I would also say one other thing inserted, I wish I'd said a second or two earlier. The school committee, if it fails in one or both towns, does have the opportunity to either certify that budget that doesn't meet what they need, but something lower, they can certify the same budget. There's that interim step before you go to a district meeting. But I think the difficulty would either town would be
that if they are subject to it and it's obligated, they, for us, I think I said it in my budget message, you would need to cut perhaps for us in round numbers, the library, the COA, just about everything in this building comes up to approximately $6 million, or most of the police department or a fire department. That kind of gives you the idea of magnitude. And it's a very broad statement because I haven't sat here and calculated exactly what the benefits for a position are. It's not exactly any of those scenarios, but that's how significant it would be. And then I think a community would need to then consider an override question later in order to be able to hire back or put some of those things back in place. And the difficulty is the later you go in the fiscal year, the actually more you need to cut because you can't make it up, if you wait too long. Do you have any comments, Lori? Any thoughts?
So is there anything that we can do that, say, if we're going to do the override, that the school committee would sign something that's saying that they wouldn't do this district meeting? Because this is what most of the residents are fearful of.
I can't begin to say what the school committee would or wouldn't do.
So there's no laws governing the district joint meeting?
Well, there's laws about it. That's what the process is, but it's solely their decision whether they wish to call that meeting or not. I mean, they could decide to certify a lower number on both communities and say one of the communities passed it and the other one didn't. The other community could try to vote again to approve the funds in another override vote. But at some point, the school committee does have that right.
So say if this override never went on the ballot, could they still call that district a joint meeting? Or only they can call it because we're putting it on the ballot for an override and it fails?
I mean, ultimately, they have to set a budget that they feel is the correct one for the district. So I think each scenario plays out a little bit differently, what the communities do. I'm not sure I can completely answer that.
So say if we voted we're not going to do an override, we're not going to put it on the ballot. Can the school committee still call a district joint meeting?
If we don't, so the budget that the council has in front of it does not include the full amount the school committee certified. It's about $6 million short, which is why it's on the override.
Yeah, so we don't do an override.
We're going to pass that, we're going to pass a budget ideally on May 6th, and we will not have met the requirement that the school committee has. So, and I think we're planning to schedule an override, and so is Raynham. I think it's up to the school committee after those two votes in June to decide whether they're going to certify the same budget and hold us to it. I think we need town council's input. I'm not a lawyer, and so the timing, given that the 1st of July is coming, one of the speakers mentioned, and I think is correct, that at some point the school committee has to be sending out pink slips because they have certain obligations under their contracts of when they have to notify people of things. So I think we have to understand the timing and how that lines up with July 1st and whether the school committee can go immediately to a district-wide meeting or whether they need to take another vote. The only experience I've had in this in another community, it was done early enough in the year so that there was a chance to have another vote by one of the communities. One passed it, one didn't. In that particular situation, the school committee decided to just certify the lower budget and deal with it in another year, but the circumstances are maybe different here.
Okay, so thank you.
Okay, so ultimately, I'm going to comment too. I think we owe it to the taxpayers to put it on the ballot. I also agree with my council colleague, Paul Murphy and Mary McGrath, about the roads. I personally think that should be a debt exclusion. It should be separate. I'm not particularly comfortable with the ad services to meet community demands of $2 million. I would like to have more information on that. And the school committee, I agree with my council colleague, Fred. I wasn't here for a lot of that stuff, but I witnessed it in other communities, and the can's been kicked down the road a lot. However, I'm not happy with the level of detail that I've gotten with 1 year versus year comparisons from year to year. So I certainly would like to know more about that. I've gone to some of the ad hoc committee meetings, even though I'm not on that committee. And I did ask Rachel King a week ago, for some more detailed numbers. I don't have them at this point in time. Ultimately, it's up to the voters to decide what they want to expend for their taxes. I fear that we will have senior citizens that can't afford to live in Bridgewater anymore. But I also have always felt that it's one generation's responsibility to pay for the next generation. I went to a brand new school when I was first, second, and third grade. And then I went to a 90-year-old school for fourth, fifth, and sixth. Some of this could have been better dealt with in November when some people were aware of this and others weren't. So I want to know if we can put an override on the ballot, but work on the numbers more. I don't know if you can answer that question.
Well, we certainly can work on the numbers more. I guess the legal question I would say is I don't know if we have to vote the exact number next week at the council meeting. But I would certainly offer that it was always my intent that we give you our recommendation of what the town should be doing, and the council decide what you feel is the right number to put to the voters. I mean, do I think we need, say, 4 firefighters and 4 police officers? I do, but I also understand if this is not the right time to ask. Even making some progress on that with some of those positions would be great for the town, but I think the council itself has to decide what is correct.
And I want to send it to the full council, but I'm looking at this override consideration sheet, and on one part, it's 10,758,097.67, and then below it, one of my council colleagues at the last meeting suggested that we could get it down to 7,825,632.90, and that's without the road reconstruction and maybe trimming some other stuff. Which number are we looking at?
That's up to all of you. I mean, so that was simply one idea, hearing some comments about roads, and maybe that should be handled differently, and some of the new positions, but not all of them. I mean, if this is not the right time for all those positions, maybe it's the right time for some targeted ones.
Okay, what you said before was pretty grave about COA, library, the smaller budgets, that we don't want those things to go away. I don't want those things to go away. I don't want less public safety, but I also know that the schools need to do stuff. So I would prefer working with a smaller number than a larger number. The school number is the same in both cases. I still would like more detail on that, but it's the same number. So whatever my council colleagues want to do, I know you're not a lawyer, can I split it that we will vote to put an override, recommend to the council to put an override on the budget and let the council decide what they want to do with the number?
Not being a lawyer, I would agree with that statement.
Okay. So what do my 2 council colleagues think?
I motion down. I think that's fair. I'd like to see where we're cutting, but I definitely think that the roads could be a debt. I'd rather see that than put it on the taxpayer. That's my opinion.
My concern with removing, for example, $2 million for roads is simply this. In the proposal as it stands, because this is in the form of an override and not a debt exclusion would be more typically the case for road rehabilitation projects. But in this case, it was proposed as a component of the override to the amount of $2 million. Keep in mind that the total rehabilitation cost of the roads in Bridgewater that we know, and by rehabilitation, I'm talking about infrastructure below the surface. I'm talking about water mains and drainage, everything below the street level. And there are at least 4, and I think more like 6 roads in town that require full restoration, full depth reconstruction. And as of, I know it was under Mr. Dutton's leadership, so it was probably 2 years ago, the figure for 4 of those roads was estimated at $44 million. And that figure was talked about a lot at that time. So the point is, those roads are not getting any better. We're not talking about just resurfacing. We know that a lot of roads in town need resurfacing. And there's this, to a certain extent, there's state money that's routinely, annually available to us for that purpose. But for full depth rehabilitation of a road, we're talking about multiple millions of dollars per road. And so my feeling is that with the override, if we do have an override that simply addresses, for example, the amount that we know that we need for schools, the public is going to be not receptive to considering a year or two from now a debt exclusion proposal for roads of multi-million-dollar figures. So I honestly think that it's best to rip the Band-Aid off, right? And to do it and to get it done. And in the proposed override, the override would continue. Obviously, it would annually incur or provide additional tax revenue. And so that would just roll over, and we'd be able to, on a continuing, ongoing basis, rehabilitate the roads that need that full depth reconstruction. So that's my fear about taking the roads out of the component of the override right now.
Councilor McGrath, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Well, if we're going to do an override for $2 million, I'd rather do it for the water. You know, the roads are going to be the roads. We have problems with them. I'd rather do overroads or get grants.
So water is a separate enterprise fund, so you can't do an override for that. You simply need to set the rates that meet your obligations. So that's why you don't see any water or sewer in this proposal.
All right, I understand what Councilor Chase is saying, but to add more to the taxes, I don't think residents are going to go for $10 million. So that's my opinion, but the council will vote.
So the motion originally that was put forward to the floor, could you read it back?
It was just the motion to recommend FY 25055.
Without a number?
What's that?
With a number?
No, I think you said, I think
did
you,
it for discussion.
I think you for discussion of the numbers.
Okay, so parliamentary, I know we don't have a lawyer here. I know I have a council colleague who has been here longer than me, and everybody else has been less than me, but I would like to see one motion with putting an override on the ballot, and a second motion with a number.
Can't we wait for the town council to have a full discussion
I
on the
want to send
number?
it to, we're going to recommend to the full council anyway. So this can be discussed with my other colleagues that are here in the room.
All right.
I'd suggest you vote that you want to recommend it, and then maybe a separate vote of what you want to recommend as an amount, and then the council can debate that next week.
Okay, so do I hear a motion to that effect?
A motion.
Well, there's a motion on the table right now for
Yep.
the recommendation. Did you want to take that back or start over?
I'd like to, I would,
Sorry?
but I didn't make the
Okay,
motion.
but
or the second.
Councilor Chase made the motion, so he has to
All
wait.
right, I'll withdraw the motion.
Okay.
Okay, so entertaining a new motion? You want to make it?
A motion to place it on the
To put the override out to the voters.
Okay.
I'm sorry, once again,
To make a motion to put an override on the ballot for the voters, and then I'll ask for a second motion with the amount.
I would favor that.
Okay, so any further discussion?
No.
All in favor? Go ahead.
Counselor Lindy,
Yes.
Counselor Chase,
Yes.
Counselor McGrath.
Yes.
Thank you, the motion was approved.
Okay. So, just semantic question. I'd love to hear what my finance committee thinks of the motion, and then we'll go back to the amount.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. While I am one member of the Finance Committee, I am cognizant of the issues that currently face us right now in this period of time. The override amount that is proposed, as a municipal employee, I can see it from two perspectives. I can see it as the taxpayer, as I am a taxpayer here in the municipality. I have family who live in this town and will be paying real estate taxes on this. I also see it from a collection standpoint. I see how much we could potentially get from it through the tax bills themselves, and whether or not folks would be reticent to pay their real estate taxes could affect collection revenues. While I believe the town is a roughly 98-99% collections, I don't think this would put that much of a dent in it. My biggest concern about it, and again, I'm only speaking as one member of the group, others of this committee can also put in their comments as well. I personally feel that the funding of roadway repairs in an override is short-sighted. Roadway repairs should be something that should be done on a bond or a debt exclusion, because it is a long-term project with a long-term goal. Overrides are typically for a short-term need, but have a long-term impact. That long-term impact ends up being on your taxes until such time as the town either votes to do an underride or votes a successive override for a higher amount. I think it is irresponsible to have $2 million on there while I want to see the roads be repaired. I mean, I have a new car myself. I don't want to see it get wrecked in a pothole somewhere. There are some pretty nasty tank slappers around town. We've all driven through them. If you've been down Vernon Street, you know it. But I think right now at this time, having that $2 million on there is unappetizing to the public, at least from what I have heard. And from folks who may be in this crowd this evening, I would share and echo their concerns. I myself, if the board wills it, we would probably have to recommend the full amount to you folks so that you could bring it to council to do your further conversations. I suspect that is where we are coming in on that as an advice and consent arm, where I would think that if there is an appetite for it on the finance committee, we would be voting to suggest that you take the full amount down to the council and discuss it in your meeting, and then make your determination from there, and then hearing our concerns and our thoughts that I would think likely echo that of our constituents, and that would be our advice and our consent. So that being said, are there any comments or questions from members of the committee?
Yeah,
Mr.
I'd
Dean?
like to go. So, I think bundling this all together was not the way to go, but that's what's in front of us now. I think the council, if you want to get this passed, and it needs to go up for vote, but I think you need to consider the lower ask from the school and focus on the school part of it. I think the roads are a stopgap. We talked about a big number that $2 million is not going to dent that. Trust me, I drive down Winter Street multiple times every day, and I'm wondering if I'm going to get another flat tire on the road. Like fire, I see the need with the new space. However, a lot of the rest of it, the add-ons, I just don't think this is the time for it or the way to go with it. I'll say as a parent, a graduate, and a son of graduates of Bridgewater Rainham, that we're not doing right by the children or the staff, to the point that my sophomore will be leaving the school system next year. Be the first one in my family not to graduate from BR. I think the longer we wait, the less likely we are to hold on to the staff members through the pink slips, and if it was to pass, the longer we wait, the harder it will be to fill the spots that it allows and opens up to, with strong staff members to come in and help the system and the kids. So I think at the end of the day, that's how I feel about it, and the town deserves to vote on it. So.
Any other comments? Mr. Thomas?
Yes. Ideally, I agree with, Mr. Bean. Yeah, it'd be nice if everything wasn't rolled right in, but it is, and ultimately, we need money to pay for things. But it goes a little deeper than that, and I'm glad to see members of the community in here, and it's not a closed-door thing, because this is, in the day and age of social media, it's easy to talk about something, but to take time out of your schedule and come here and listen and make comments on it is something different. So, no, ultimately, I don't want to pay more taxes. I've been here for 30 years, but it's what has to, in my opinion, It has to be done, and I'm fine with that. But what we have to look at is, especially the people that are involved from the members of the community, they've done a great job bringing awareness to these things where where the shortfalls lie in town is, finding the solutions. Not just, let's say it passes, Bridgewater and Rainham, and then a lot of people just go about their business afterwards. It's more to it than that. We're in these situations, inflation's happened, uncertainty with elections, and, the market, leads to some of these things. But ultimately, what we have done in the past is what's put us here. So those people that like to be so heavily involved, get more involved, get involved in the town. Mr. Chase used a great phrase, that something this means something to me. I'm not trying to, frown upon anybody's work or anything, but he said Mr. Dutton's leadership. That's great. Mr. Dutton was a town manager, and we have an acting town manager, and we have a new town manager coming in. The town manager's job, unless I'm wrong, is to guide the town, handle the day-to-day, be there as a reference point. The leadership is here. That's where the strength in leadership needs to come through, and planning and accountability is what we have for a town council, and that's why it's there. We don't have a mayor, we have a town council. That's the only way we're accountable to the voters of Bridgewater. So, yes, we passed this, but it can't stop there. We have to push for better management with our money, working with the school district, get them to manage their money better, like we all do. I don't think there's any millionaires sitting here in the room. We all count our dollars, but we'll pay for this now. Hopefully, we get it, and we get the funds where we need them. But it's how we lead, what we do with our money after this is what's really going to matter. So that we're not sitting here in 5 years, 10 years, or another 15 years worrying about the next override. Let's plan for this stuff. If you want to be involved, and it takes a lot. It takes a lot. I know, I've served on boards with Mr. Bean before. I've seen other people volunteer in town before. I don't have time for any of this, and I know you guys don't too. But this is how things get done, by volunteering, getting involved, and pushing. And we just need to make sure, if this override passes, we implement some strong leadership, okay? And use the town manager as a guide, not the person that's directing everything, all right? They're hired to do a job. Whether they're from here or not here, they're just hired to do a job. That's all they're doing. Doesn't mean they're a bad person. It's up to us that live here to hold these people accountable and hold ourselves accountable. And if that means we change leadership, that's what happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. It's okay. That's why we vote. But that's what needs to be remembered here, okay? If we pass this, and even if we don't, that's what needs to be remembered. And people have to keep that in mind.
Are there any other comments from members of the committee? There are no other comments. I would entertain a motion.
Motion to accept it.
All right, I hear a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Bean. Josh?
Ms. Pagone?
Yes.
Mr. Bennett?
Yes.
Mr. Bean?
Yes.
Ms. Basewicks?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Thank you. The motion was approved.
So motion to accept is as is with the number that is?
Yeah. Well, it's I'm sorry, not to accept, it's recommend.
Recommend.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll entertain a motion from our group.
I would motion to recommend.
I second.
Okay.
So I already have a motion to recommend. Councilor McGrath made the motion to recommend, which I
You
voted.
didn't recommend it with a number.
Right.
I was going to recommend that the council decides what stays and what doesn't. We recommend looking at the numbers. Not that I don't recommend that it stays this way, but I recommend that the council decides what takes off and what's not, because I think it's too high.
I think given our discussion, that's kind of where we stand as well, but, we don't sit in the seats to have the conversation.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, Counselor, again, per charter, we're just an advice and consent arm. We unfortunately can't make those difficult decisions. I try to emphasize that to the public as well, that, by charter, we're just advice and consent. We have something brought before us. We have to say, we recommend or we don't recommend or yes or no to it. Oftentimes, our decision can be and effectively might be overturned by whatever the decision of the council is ultimately. Case in point, if you were to look at, for one of the proposals that came before us a couple of weeks ago, for the preservation of a book, we said yes to it, but the council could have ultimately said no. That's one of those situations where we made a recommendation, the council could have said no. In this situation, We're recommending it because, it's one of those things we just have to put to the public to vote on, but effectively also, the council is the one that has to make the difficult decision as to whether or not this $10 million figure stays static, is modified, or is completely changed altogether. Again, that's one of those things. We're at that point where if I can make the difficult decision, I would, but I can't, and I defer to my colleagues in the higher up level in the legislative branch that actually has that capability.
Well, I mean, based on what I hear from your committee and how I feel, I think I would like to recommend that we look at the numbers and bring the price down.
I think in light of the comments, and I do thank you, and I think you're correct in that regard, is that our options are limited, and I think the appropriate thing to do is to, since there's generalized agreement as to favorability of an override, I think that we need to return the proposed order to the council, where the question of the actual amount can be finally debated and voted again in the council. So in other words, I think this order itself needs to be voted with a positive recommendation for approval. Let the council then do its work. That would be my recommendation.
Are you comfortable with that? Are you comfortable with that, Mary?
So you want to switch my motion to Councilor Chase's? That's
just-
fine,
no,
because
I'm just-
I'll bring it up at the town council, and I'll also bring up what the finance said at the council. So I'll go along with that.
I can't take you out of turn, sorry. So does our vote stand the way it is? Do I have to take a second vote?
I don't think so. I mean, you've already motioned to recommend it.
Okay.
I think we're good with that.
It's ultimately going to be discussed at the council level anyway.
Yeah.
So, okay. Thank you, everybody, for your input. Let's go to order.
But did we do a final vote? Our committee didn't vote.
Josh, do we need another vote? Fred's asking.
We didn't vote.
So you voted to recommend already.
Okay.
That was Councilman Grass' original, and then it went to Finance Committee.
Okay.
Okay, so I will move on to order.
I do want to point for the record that because one of our members must leave, they have a prior commitment that they have to attend to, our committee will no longer have a quorum sufficient to hold our meeting. So I would ask that be noted in the record that we will be adjourning as a result.
Okay.
All right, do I?
Motion.
Yep, and with that being said, I do entertain a motion. Motion to adjourn is put by Mr. Bean. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Bassowitz. Josh?
Ms. Pagone?
Yes.
Mr. Bennett? Yes. Mr. Bean?
Yes.
Ms. Bassowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Thank you. The motion was approved. The meeting is adjourned.
Okay, so we are going to go to budget order 0FY26-001 FY 2026 annual town budget. I will go to either the town manager or the finance director.
I'm going to ask the finance director to take this one, since she's developed all the numbers that go into it. She can answer it more effectively than I can.
Okay, and you can pass the mic. Ms. Garini.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So before you is a balanced budget that has been worked on and is before you. At the last council meeting, we did a budget presentation with a lot of details. I don't know that, we need to go through that again, but I could certainly put that up on the screen, or, oh, no, I can't.
The screens just both went up, so.
Yeah. But we did go over a lot of it in detail. There's a pretty lengthy budget message inside that says what, based on the resolutions that the council has set forth. My team and I, with the help of Mrs. Robinson, met with all of our department heads. We had a very lengthy discussion with each and every one of them, as we do annually. When we start out giving you with our preliminary numbers, we're always in a deficit because we know what everybody needs, and we shave that number down just so that we can have a balanced budget. This year was a little difficult. We decided that, not decided, but we have to fund contracts that are in negotiation. So you'll see in one of the lines there is an appropriation for the contract negotiations that we are in process with now 6 of the unions. So every union in the town, their contracts are up. So in this budget, we have put that number in there. So we did a thoughtful and thorough presentation, I think, at the council level. So I'm happy to answer any questions that the committee has. If you want me to go detail by detail, I'll certainly go through it like that. But yeah, we have a balanced budget before you, and let me know what you need to know.
I have a question. Some of the residents asked me. I'm thankful that you put all the debt exclusions on there because they did ask. So could you explain the debt exclusion?
Sure.
Do you take a loan? Is it by a bond?
Yep. So, yeah, the debt exclusions are added to the tax levy when the notes are financed. Typically, you'll get an authorization for a loan to borrow that stays open up until the financing and the closing of the loans are that funds the project itself. For instance, the Mitchell School, that was in conjunction with the MSBA. So at the time when they financed it early before the project was done because they got a lot of assistance from MSBA, and plus there was good ratings at the time. So that was already closed out way before the project was done. So that goes into your levy and on the tax bills as soon as the loans are closed, and then the principal payment is usually due the next fiscal year. In the budget presentation, I think I did a pretty good detail of when the loans were issued, and then there's also a column in there when they do mature. So every year when you fund debt service, it adds, when it's a debt exclusion payment, it adds into the amount of your levy after the 2.5% is calculated, plus new growth. Then each debt payment of an exclusion vote is added to the dollar of the levy, which is how the tax bills are calculated and decided. So for all the debt that the town has, it's mostly, I'd say 80% of it is debt exclusion, which means that it's only funded until the debt is paid off. So once the debt is matured, it will fall off of the tax roll. So mostly all the school debt is all debt excluded. We had the fire station, that's on there. Yeah, the only thing that's not on there right now is we have a note for the academy building, which was in conjunction with the CPA loan that funded the bulk of the restoration of this building. But there was also a note because of all of it could not be paid for with the CPA under the guidelines. So there were things that we had to fund outside of that purview. So that's inside the levy, which means it's part of your operations budget. So every year we have to fund the debt payments inside the operations. So it doesn't drop off the tax bill. It's just part of what is raised in the tax bill itself.
Is there a limit of debt exclusion that a town can have?
Not as long as you're not over your levy limit. There is a levy limit, and we're nowhere near it.
Okay.
But as
Well,
far as
thank you.
putting
This-
it up
this
to
was
that
very
that
thorough.
point.
I
Okay.
really appreciate that.
Sure.
Council Chase?
Thank you. I do just have a question with respect to revenues of local receipts, and I know that the preliminary budget memo did indicate the deficit that we would be facing, something in the order of $1.3 million. And I'm just wondering if we have more clarity now than we did a couple of months ago with respect to the prospects for local receipts and revenues. Is there any comment you can make about that?
Well, mostly the revenues are pretty static. I mean, we only have 4 sources of revenue in the town, and the biggest is obviously the tax levy and the property taxes, meaning real estate and personal property taxes. So that's one component. The second component is state aid. We use the governor's figures in this budget. The third being local receipts, which we, based on the resolution and the policies that we've had in place, we budget pretty conservatively so that we have money available for capital needs. And then we have other financing sources, which we use other funds that are developed, like for Title V, we pay the Title V debt. We have a diff with the Elm Street debt, so that new growth in that special revenue fund pays that debt. So those sources really just pay for things in the budget. So but those are the 4 sources that the town can only use. So in funding the operating budget, the revenues, I don't think there was a real there's obviously a revenue shortage compared to the expenditures, because we always knew what our revenues would look like, because we do have a 5-year forecast too that we're constantly monitoring. We base the budget with we have a 5-year forecast that looks out based on what the levy's going to look like in 5 years, based on what we think, whatever the new growth, and it's just 2.5 new growth, and that's it. So we can easily calculate these numbers. We can easily estimate state aid. It's pretty conservative. They're not going to give us 5 or 10%. We usually budget or estimate 2% until we get a solid number from the state. And then local receipts. Again, we look at what our current revenues coming in, what we budgeted in the last few years, what we think the trend's going to be with conservative estimates going out 5 to 10 years. And then we look at our expenditures, and they are just out, they're just outspending what our revenues are coming in. So that really was the shortfall, and looking at the preliminary is trying to, 14% pension increase. We originally thought health insurance was going to be 10%. We were fortunate that comes just under 7%. So liability insurance, so all those non-discretionary costs are outpacing our revenues. And then we have 80% of the town's budget, 83% is salaries. Salaries and benefits, but salaries are contractually decided upon. We have contracts in place for everything but COLA. So we're negotiating with, like I said, all 6 of the unions, and that's how it shakes out. And I can let Ms. Robinson chime in on that.
Mm-hmm. I think that was an excellent overview to your specific question about local receipts. We had many spirited debates about that, and landed on being, as she said, very conservative, because looking at what's happening at other levels of government, like motor vehicle excise has been typically an area that has continued to grow. But if people are going to make different choices in the coming year about buying a new car or leasing a new vehicle, that might not quite reach the levels it has reached. So we made targeted decisions not to increase those any more than we did, because we didn't want to leave ourselves in a situation where we had to adjust throughout the year. But conversely, With the golf course, it's been continuing to do better every single year, and we felt even though meeting our obligations, we could still add $200,000 from that source to the local receipts. So those are just two examples.
Mhm. All right. Thank you both.
Any more questions from either of my colleagues? So I have a couple. With the Finance Committee having to cut their meeting short, they're going to have to act on this at another date to send it back to the council, okay? And you were talking to me before the meeting about what do we need to have meetings prior to the council. Do you think it's in order to have meetings, either one of you, prior to either the council meeting next week, or the budget will not be voted on till the 6th of May? So I don't know what's happened in the past. I've only been on the Budget and Finance Committee a short period of time. Mary is new. I don't know, Fred, if you've ever served on Budget and Finance before or not.
I don't know.
You don't remember, okay. But I think we should try to go around circle and maybe have another meeting before it goes to the council.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, so in the past, the town manager, acting town manager, and the finance are available at your, pleasure. If you want to meet 5 days a week, or, it's up to you to let us know when you want us to be available. We know that this year there's a lot of questions, so, you have a lot of questions, we'll be happy. You schedule meetings, we'll be happy. If you have certain things that you need, if we know ahead of time, maybe we can help with that. But we are here to help, all the committees make their decisions and the council. So, as much or as not as you need. I mean, there are some years that we had, very minimal discussion. And then there were some years that we had a lot of in-depth. So, I mean, whatever the committees need from us, we'll be here to help you.
Thank you. So I have a motion on the order FY 26-001.
Motion to recommend?
Second.
Any further discussion?
No.
Okay.
Counselor Lindy,
Yes.
Counselor Chase,
Yes.
Counselor McGrath.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion was approved.
Thank you. Let's go to item budget order 0 FY 26-002 FY 26 Water Enterprise Fund. I will defer to whomever wants to enlighten us on the other side of the table.
So for the Water Enterprise Fund, I think if I recall my presentation, it's about a 1% increase next year. It's generally the cost of the actual operation of the facility and all of the responsibilities that it has. We haven't, we're just in the process of figuring out rate that we'll need to charge, so we can't really answer that part of the question.
Okay.
Let's start with that.
Questions from either of my council colleagues? No? I'll entertain a motion to recommend.
A motion to recommend?
I would second that.
Okay. Any further discussion?
No.
No.
Go ahead, Josh.
Counselor Lindy,
Yes.
Counselor Chase,
Yes.
Counselor McGrath.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion was approved.
Okay, we will go to budget order 0 FY 26-003 FY 26 Sewer Enterprise Fund.
So this budget compared to water is up what you might consider significantly, maybe is approximately 40% from FY 25 to 26. The reason for that is because of the EPA consent order we have to make the renovations to the plant, which have started a couple of years ago in phase 1, and phase 2 will start later this year. The debt that we need to float to pay for this is combination of being paid for, a combination of user fees, low interest loans from the state, and loan forgiveness. And so this one will need more calculation internally to be able to determine the rates that I say we don't know now, but they will need to go up to support this budget, which we're contractually obligated to complete.
So you don't have any rates right now
We
calculated?
don't have rates right now, but we need to, because we need to forecast not only what we're on the borrowings we have now, but what we need to be preparing for in the next year as Phase 2 starts. And so we are working through that, but know that this budget is significantly different from last year, and that's the reason.
Yeah, last year was a 50% increase in the rate.
It's not lost on us, but unfortunately, a federal consent order means that we need to address it.
Understood. Any questions from my colleague? Go ahead, Fred.
If I could, yes, please. If I recall correctly, I think that the amount that's referenced in the consent decree is about $130 million. And I guess I'm looking for some clarity, some kind of assurance as to our ability, because we have several years yet to meet our obligation by implementation of Phase 2 to remove phosphorus. What do you think is our prospect for meeting that obligation on a timely basis?
So for Phase 1, we were supposed to have it completed by May 1st upcoming. We are a little bit behind on that. We are actually asking the EPA to allow us a little more time to finish Phase 1 while we get Phase 2 underway. And overall, the date is June 1st, 2031 for everything. Phase 1 is behind by a little bit because there were some issues with generator power at the plant, as well as getting what they call the MBBR set started, which is the device, the process by which microbes eat nitrogen. It's as technical as I can get for you, sorry. So that's a little bit behind, but that first phase was $43 million, and we're actually only paying for about 34 by the time we deal with the loan forgiveness and the low interest loan, so that's good news. As to what Phase 2 will actually cost, we don't know that yet because we're just in the process of retaining the engineering firm, a different firm than Phase 1. We're hoping to have them under contract in the next month or so, and then they'll have to design Phase 2 and then bid it out. And so until we actually get to that process, I can't tell you the exact amount. All we have is an engineer's estimate at this point.
The loans that we are counting on right now, are those from the state revolving fund?
Yes, it's the state, they call it an SRF loan, Special Revolving Fund, so from the Clean Water Trust.
So there's some potential for loan forgiveness?
Hopefully, the loan forgiveness that we were able to get for Phase 1, which is why the budget is increased, because we have our first principal payment in this FY '26, which is like $1.5 million. But we don't have any interest because it was cut down with loan forgiveness and interest-free, and that was from the state revolving fund through ARPA funds from the federal government. So a lot of those programs are subsidized by the federal government, so we're not really sure what that's going to look like for Phase 2. But there is, if you pay attention to the, or if you hear a lot of the news at the trust, they're making their own, I guess, forgiveness programs and things, not necessarily only using them with ARPA money. And we're hopeful that we'll be able to, because we're going to need a lot of help with Phase 2.
Thank you.
I was going to ask about the loan, so there's already been answered.
Okay. I will entertain a motion if there's no more questions.
Motion to recommend?
A second?
No more discussion? Roll call?
Counselor Lindy?
Yes.
Counselor Chase?
Yes.
Counselor McGrath?
Yes.
Thank you. The motion was approved.
Okay, we will go to Budget Order 0 FY26-004, FY26 Transfer Station Enterprise Fund.
So this budget is actually slightly reduced from FY25. There were some maintenance costs we've taken care of in the current year, so we were able to make some adjustments for next year. and our projection is there will not be a need for any rate changes to what people pay to use the station.
Thank you. Question?
No.
None.
Entertain a motion?
Motion to recommend?
Second.
Okay. Roll call?
Counselor Lindy,
Yes?
Counselor Chase,
Yes.
Counselor McGrath.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion was approved.
Okay, and the last legislation referred is Budget Order 0FY26-005, authorization of revolving funds.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is an annual process as well. We collect some revenue that we put in a revolving fund, which means we collect fees for services, and it just pays for the expenditures for the library. I think there's fines that they replenish with new books. The recreation revolving fund has to do with, the collection of fees and programs that Little League, Football League, soccer, softball. So they pay to use the fields, and a lot of the maintenance or some of the supplies and maintenance that are specifically for those programs are collected and spent for that. So that's the recreation revolving. And then the Council on Aging, they had started this revolving fund that they collect, I don't know, a couple dollars here and there from seniors, and they just replenish the programs and use that for needs of the seniors when they're at the senior center.
Any
Oh,
questions?
there's a town clerk one too, sorry.
Oh, town
Sorry,
clerk?
Tina.
Go ahead.
So there's also a street listing revolving account that the town clerk is able to collect fees for the street lists, and it helps pays the bill to print that every year. So
Thank you. Question?
No.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to recommend?
Second.
Okay. Go
Counselor
ahead.
Lindy,
Yes?
Counselor Chase,
Yes.
Counselor McGrath.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion was approved.
Okay. So we'll go on to public comment, item E. Anybody that wants to address us, come on up, state your name and address for the record.
This is different. Sonia Striggles, District 1 Counselor, 343 Pine Street. I just wanted everyone that's in the room, my fellow counselors, to know I've been really digging into the number to make sure we can get it down to where I think the residents are being heard while we're still addressing longstanding issues that our town will likely face in the coming years. I'd rather just get ahead of some of those things now if we can. The number that I came to, obviously the school number is $6,034,614.95. That goes unchanged in this number. The additional number is $1,786,855.80. That includes all police, fire, library, and council on aging items in the budget. The reason being is I feel we need to make sure we are giving our senior citizen population every resource we possibly can, and they heavily utilize both the Council on Aging, obviously, for obvious reasons, and the library. And to make sure that our library is properly funded and doesn't lose any accreditation, I do find the need to make sure that we fully fund those items. So that brings us to a grand total of $7,821,470.75. It is under an $8 million number. It is listening to residents where it is resident-based servicing. And I do think that there are other items that I see a deep need for, like a DPW worker, different things like that maybe we can look at. But I do think that this is a proper starting point to at least get this number to a palatable conclusion. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments? Mr. Kennedy?
John Kennedy, 487 Summer Street. Can you hear me? I just wanted to offer for the override that you've asked about, ride out, removing the roads. The motion to do that is just a motion to divide. Passes majority vote. Individual line items themselves. Items not they're separate items. You have the school, the roads, municipal. You can divide those individually based under Robert's Rules of Order, take an individual vote on them, and just move one if you so wish. So I just wanted to offer that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other citizen comments? Mr. Fitzgibbons.
Hi, Tim Fitzgibbons, 238 South Drive. I'm here tonight first as chairman of the school for a little bit. I'm going to take off regular person. So, to Ms. McGrath's question about the district-wide meeting, that's a remedy that a district school committee can invoke at any point in time when there's a budget impasse, regardless of whether or not there is an override. That's just the way the law is written. So I just wanted to make sure you were aware of that. I do want to thank you all for your very hard work on this budget. I feel like Frodo, but I guess I look like Gandalf, people tell me, where Frodo and Gandalf are talking about the ring, and Frodo says, I wish this hadn't happened in my time. And Gandalf says, so do all who see such times, but all we can do is decide what to do in the times we're given. So I know we're all working our best to get to the decision that's right for the town, that's right for the district, that's right for the students. To your point, Mr. Lindy, I know Ms. King has reached out to the superintendent. He's working very diligently on that, amongst looking at what-if scenarios on, kind of worst-case scenarios. We haven't gotten there yet, so I'm not going to speak about that. All right, I'm going to take off my school committee hat at that point and say it would be absolutely crazy to me as a resident of Bridgewater if we had an override vote and it was voted no for the school committee to move forward and ask for a district-wide meeting. That's just my personal opinion. I'm not speaking as a school committee member. I'm not speaking for the school committee in any way, shape, or form, but just my opinion for what it's worth for Ms. McGrath and the rest of us on the council. And thank you again for all your hard work on it. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Fitzgibbons. Other comments?
I just had an idea of some towns, and they have developers come in to build apartments or construction of some sort. They often will help the town assist with some of the problems they may have in funding different areas of road repair, police or fire, or something like that. I'm not sure if that's been introduced to the people that are going to be working on Broad Street, but they're getting TIF, if they would be amenable to something like that, and if that might be an advantage to them as far as tax payments or anything else on their end. Might be something to look at to help the town out. After all, we are giving them a big break for over 15 years. That would be certainly good faith endorsement for them towards the town.
Thank you. Josh, do you have his name from previously for the record? Okay, just making sure.
Yep.
MJ Spagone, 5 Lakeshore Center, Unit 1128. I'm actually going to speak briefly as my capacity as chair of the Finance Committee. First, Counselor, I would like to first express my apologies for the fact that my committee was unable to finish the remainder of our business this evening. This is the second time this has happened in a joint meeting with this committee, but also with the school committee as well. It is inexcusable, and I take full responsibility for it because my membership will not show up to the meetings. We also still do have 2 openings, but there is no remedy with which to address that. As the chair of the Finance Committee, I believe there is some action we need to take that I would suggest at some point in the future that the council, if you want to bring it to your colleagues, there needs to be some stipulation as to long-term absences and folks that are not stepping up to the plate. It is unforgivable, it is inefficient, and it is delaying the business of the town for which my committee is meant to work on. And for that, I apologize for what has happened this evening and to the public as well in general. I wish it didn't happen. It did, and unfortunately, we will have to move on from it.
Thank you.
Mallard, 270 Grange. I was a little disappointed because I didn't hear any discussion about that second number that was pretty well detailed in the paperwork. I mean, like, and by I mean didn't hear anything. There was no discussion of until a fellow councilman stepped up and sort of the justification behind some of these numbers. And I know there's been people working actively since I stood up and said that the number was too loud, too high, too big, whatever we want to call it. And I appreciate that, but I would have liked to have seen more of a discussion. My fear is, and I know you can't really answer, but if there's a lot of discussion without a pure recommendation from your, if I understand, you guys can only recommend, without a recommendation of we support the lower number, now do they go back and possibly say we have to refer it back to finance again? I mean, no, we can just move forward and vote on it next week, or what, I'm losing track of the days, whatever the next meeting is. Okay, all right, thank you.
Councillor Ellenberg?
Thank you, Mr. Lindy. Working?
Yep.
Is this working? Okay, good. I would like this Finance Committee to consider a third option, which is the level funding of the employees with a smaller override, a combination, a compromise. I would like your committee to direct our town manager and our town treasurer to provide that information. I think that would be very welcome by the taxpayers. And I think that this would be possible to negotiate because the COLAs are still up in the air, as Ms. Guarini said. So we could possibly do this, and I want to see what the numbers are and potentially make a recommendation to the townspeople. Thank you.
Any other citizen comments? Once? Twice? You have a comment? Okay. Name and address for the record.
Eric Hoy, 120 Oak Ridge Lane. It was mentioned a few times tonight about the cost of living adjustment, and I just want people to understand something about the way that teacher salary schedules work, and just salary schedules in general when you're talking about the different bargaining units within the school district. I don't find that many people in many other lines of work are asked to take a 0% cost of living increase as casually as teachers, police, fire, just to name a few of our town departments, as it is mentioned sometimes that people do. Things like that have been done in the past when we're on a fiscal cliff. Clearly, we're facing some major financial constraints right now. And I think the reason that people are hesitant, that people do say this, is that because when you look at our individual contracts, there are those step increases built in. I just want to stress that that's not something that's unique to Bridgewater. It's not something that's unique to our school district, in particular, our police department, our fire department. That's very standard across the state. And I really will pose a question that I'm not expecting anyone to answer. In what other line of work is that question acceptable? I would never walk into someone else's office in the private sector and suggest that they don't get a cost of living increase that they've earned just because times are difficult. You get what you pay for. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other citizen comment? So before I adjourn, I would like to ask my two colleagues here to consider I'm going to call a 6 o'clock meeting for Budget and Finance next week before the council meeting to go over numbers. Does that work for both of you?
Next Tuesday?
Next Tuesday before
Okay.
our council meeting.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to call that and we'll post that. It has to be posted by Thursday and I'll be in touch further. Okay, I will entertain at this point a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Councilor Lindy?
Yes.
Councilor Chase?
Yes.
Councilor McGrath?
Yes.
Thank you. The motion was approved. The meeting is
Thank you
adjourned.
to the residents for being here and my fellow councilors.